So we know how to take our block letters and we know how to make them 3D for our blockbusters. Okay, so first of all, 1-point perspective is the view that you're looking down an alleyway, looking down railroads, which you should be doing, looking down a street. So what happens is that with 1-point perspective, there's one vanishing point, and in this picture, it's marked by the blue X. So if you follow any of the diagonal lines in 1-point perspective, they converge to one spot, and that's your vanishing point. So that's where your eyes automatically go to, and that's where it's called a vanishing point, because that's what it makes it look like everything's vanishing. So there's to be a horizontal line right across where that X is, where the diagonal lines meet, and that's the horizon line. So that's your eye level. So wherever you're standing, your eye level is going to be a little bit different. So so how we do 1-point perspective is by following these rules, by using diagonal lines to one vanishing point, all lined up on horizon line. So this might be review for some people. Some people maybe have done it in grade 10 visual art if you've taken that. Some of you maybe have never done before. So some of the terminology. So the horizon line, again, that's where the sky meets the ground, and that's always at your eye level. So my horizon line is going to be a little bit lower than most people in the class. So the vanishing point is always on the horizon line, okay? So everything converges into that one vanishing point. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw a square. So we're going to draw a square below the horizon line. So I would try this for practice if you've never done this before. So you could draw a perfect square. And when you draw your square, you want to make sure that the lines are parallel to your horizon line. So if your horizon line is like this, you want to make sure that your top and the bottom of your square are totally parallel to your horizon line. And then your straight up and down lines on the side are totally perpendicular. So right straight up and down. So with 1-point perspective, your lines are always parallel to the horizon line or perpendicular to the horizon line, or they are going on an angle and they meet up with your vanishing point. So if I draw a square below my horizon line, then it's like I'm looking down at it, okay? So the next one is I want to draw my diagonal lines on the corners of my square and match it up with the vanishing point. Those are called orthogonal lines. So the 3 corners of my box I lined up with the X. I didn't do on the 4th corner because you're not going to see that anyway. It's going to be behind my square. Okay, I'm going to draw lightly because I'm going to erase some of the stuff later. Okay, so the 3 corners of my square is going to line up with my vanishing point. Okay, so the next step, so you just need to close up the cube, the edges of the box, just to make our cube. So I want to decide how thick or thin my box is. So whatever that one line is for the square, I just shift it all the way back, and it's going to stay perfectly parallel to that, and you're just going to draw it right across. And then I'm going to close the other edge and have it going straight up and down. Okay? And then I just have to erase everything. So I'm going to erase those extra lines around my orthogonal lines that I don't need. And then so again, it looks, because it's below our horizon line, I'm looking down on it. And because I'm looking down on it, I can see the top of my box. And because it's shifted over to the side, I can see the one side of it. Okay? All right, so let's try another one. Let's try a rectangular shape above the horizon line. So if it's above the horizon line, then I can see underneath it, and I can see to the other side. So just like in this graffiti here that I'm showing you, the way that it's placed, the 3D is underneath it and to the side. So it's making it look like I'm looking up at it. So this is important if you're doing like a blockbuster in a high spot. You want to think about where the person is standing, where they're going to see it. Okay, so if you've never done this before, give this a shot. It's good for extra practice. Okay, now if I have a box on my horizon line, because it's at eye level, I can't see underneath it, and I can't see on the top of it, but if it's off to the side, I can see the side of it. If it's off to the other side, I can see the other side of it. If it was right in the middle, it would actually just look like a square. I wouldn't see that it's a cube. Okay? So now to try this with your own blockbuster, so already you've drawn a blockbuster. So if you've tried the basic blockbuster shape, you could draw it below your horizon line. So I've just taken my blockbuster and I've lined up all the edges of my blockbuster with that vanishing point. I've decided how thick I want to make it, and then I've erased any extra orthogonal lines that I don't need. So another thing you could try is that you could have your blockbuster above your horizon line. So it looks like if it was up high on a wall, it would look like that you're looking up in it so you can see the bottom of it. Now, you can do 3D without having a vanishing point. And this is sometimes what works for blockbusters, because it's not like when you're painting a blockbuster, like you're able to take a ruler and make a vanishing point. So if you're doing it on paper, you totally could make it above or below the horizon line. You can use vanishing points. But there's another way just to do this to make it look 3D without having an actual vanishing point, because you're not going to have a ruler and be able to line stuff up on a big wall. So in reality, the vanishing point for this one would be way, way over at the very edge, and you would line everything up. But obviously, you can't do this on a wall. So the way that you do that is you have the same angle for all the edges of your letters and the same length for all of them. So that's your first step. So you have to use a ruler for this to make it look proper. And then the next one, you just close it off. So again, your lines have to be straight up and down to close off the side of it to decide how thick you want it. And then you close off the bottom to decide how same thickness. And then the last step is that you're going to erase all the lines. So I noticed in my pictures that I forgot to add in the letters, but that's what yours would look like. So this is an example of not necessarily using a vanishing point for above or below or on the horizon, because the vanishing point would be way, way off to the side. So this one, it still looks like I'm looking up at it and I'm looking off to the side, but I'm just sort of doing it, I'm eyeballing it instead of using a vanishing point. So here's another option. Okay. Now, the examples that I showed you are when they're just full boxes. There's no letters that have any empty spaces between them. So with blockbusters, same as throw-ups, you don't want to have empty spaces, but sometimes that's impossible to do. So for this example with my letter T, obviously there's going to be spaces underneath the letter T, but because I'm adding 3D to it, that's all going to be colored in solid. So if you have like a letter F or E or T, it's a little bit trickier. So it's the same principle though. So I'm using my diagonal lines from each one of the corners. So the only difference from this one is just inside of my T's. At the edges there, you'll see that there's some lines, but they don't go all the way through. They're just going to hide underneath the letter T. Okay, so that's my first step. I start with all of my diagonal lines and I close them off. So I want to make sure that I close off the sides, but you'll see I have to, what that one letter is for my T, I take the same thing and I just shift it over. Okay, and then my last step is I just finish off the bottom. So that's how, if you have like a letter T or an E or an F, how it's a little bit trickier, but you can do it. Now, if your challenge was that you tried different style block letters, you're going to have a lot more spaces in them, so your 3D is going to be a little bit trickier. But again, it's because you have that huge, really thick 3D in it, it's going to fill in all the insides of it. So really you don't have very many, you don't actually have hollows. It's all going to be filled in with your 3D. So if that's something that you tried, give that a shot. It's the very same principle. You're just doing everything on the angle on every single edge. Okay, so give that a shot. Okay, so your assignment to hand in is, now that you have your blockbuster, you're going to add in the 3D for it. Now you can try it with the vanishing point either below the horizon, above the horizon, or you can use the way that I showed you where you're just doing the diagonal lines all on the same angle. And you're going to, don't color it in yet because we're going to talk about color next, but hand that in on D2O. Okay, great guys, thank you.